A battle between corruption and justice. The fall of Judge Malcolm Trent. It started like any other day in the New Orleans courthouse. Another case on the docket. Another defendant standing before the bench. But when a powerful white judge thought he could frame a black woman for a crime she didn't commit, he unknowingly chose the wrong target. Because she wasn't just any woman. She was an undercover FBI agent, and she had been watching him for much longer than he could have ever suspected. What followed was a collision between corruption and justice, a battle where every move could be the last. And how it ended, no one could have predicted. In the heart of New Orleans, where the Mississippi River winds through the very soul of the city, the courthouse on Royal Street stood tall and imposing. Its marble columns towered like sentinels of an old world, cold reminders of the power wielded inside. Judge Malcolm Trent adjusted his wire-rimmed glasses as he sat high upon his bench. His silver hair was slicked back neatly, his dark robes flowing around him like armor. He sat like a king upon a crumbling throne, a ruler who brooked no challenges. His gavel was his scepter. His smirk was his crown. Across the courtroom, Kira Holt stood before him, wrists shackled, calm eyes unblinking. 34 years old, her skin rich and dark, her braided hair pulled back with a soldier's precision. She stood tall despite the orange jumpsuit they had forced on her, a warrior cloaked in false guilt. When Judge Trent tapped his gavel once, the noise echoed through the silent courtroom, bouncing off the ornate ceiling like a shot fired into the air. "Kira Holt," he drawled, his voice smooth and smug. "You stand convicted of aggravated assault, of causing harm to an innocent man on Bourbon Street." Kira said nothing. "And though your lawyer spun tales of mistaken identity, I see through the smoke," Trent continued. "This city doesn't tolerate violence, especially not from the likes of you." The words hit like a slap. The likes of you. The history behind those words was as old as the stained bricks of the building. Without hesitation, Judge Trent leaned forward, delivering the sentence with relish. 15 years. No parole. The courtroom gasped. Even the prosecutor, who had played along with the sham of a trial, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. 15 years for a drunken bar fight in which Kira hadn't even laid a hand on anyone. But Kira didn't flinch. She stood steady, breathing slow and even, her gaze locked on Trent's face. Because Kira wasn't a criminal. She was Special Agent Kira Holt, and this was part of the plan. For the past 2 years, she had worked undercover at the courthouse, pretending to be a low-level temp, cleaning offices and filing meaningless paperwork, all while gathering evidence against Judge Trent. The bribes, the sentencing disparities, the secret deals made in smoky backrooms, where she'd planted bugs in Trent's golf bag, slipped recording devices behind the bookshelves in his office, photographed false invoices, and sealed off the book's payments. She had smiled at him in the hallway while secretly gathering the threads to unravel the empire he thought invincible. Today was supposed to be the final act. Let herself be convicted, accept the sentence, and then watch from the shadows as the FBI swept in and tore down everything Malcolm Trent had built. Her handler, Assistant Director Elias Ford, had assured her, by nightfall, it would all be over. Trent would be the one in chains. But as the deputies led her toward the holding cells, Kira caught something in Trent's eyes, something that made her stomach twist. It was suspicion. He had sensed something. She could feel it like a cold wind crawling up her spine. Still, she allowed herself to be taken down into the bowels of the courthouse, into a cell reeking of bleach and despair. She sat on the rusted bench, breathing slow, keeping her mind steady. Everything was under control until sunset came, and no rescue came with it. Kira counted the minutes, then the hours. Each second that passed tightened the knot of unease in her chest. Meanwhile, Judge Trent sat alone in his office, bourbon in hand, flipping through Kira's case file. Something didn't add up. She hadn't reacted like a guilty woman. She hadn't begged or cried. She hadn't broken when he slammed the gavel down with the full weight of his authority. "Who are you, really?" Trent muttered aloud. Narrowing his eyes at her intake documents, he buzzed his enforcer, Calvin Drake. An ex-cop with a record as dirty as the judge's own. Run her, Trent ordered. Run her deep. Find out who she really is. Drake nodded and vanished into the maze of the courthouse. Down in the holding cell, Kira felt the shift. The guards looked at her differently now, warier, harsher. The first sign that the plan had gone sideways came when they transferred her, not to the processing center for bail, but to Orleans Parish Prison. Not part of the plan at all, they were isolating her, cutting her off. Meanwhile, across town, Elias Ford paced inside the FBI field office, his face tight with frustration. The warrants to raid Trent's office had been stalled. Someone, a friendly judge, was blocking them. Elias cursed under his breath. They couldn't pull Kira out without blowing the case wide open. They had to find another way. And fast. Inside the prison, Kira remained calm. She built a rhythm. Breathe, pace, wait. A rhythm honed during years of deep cover work in some of the most dangerous places imaginable. But when they moved her again into solitary confinement, she knew the noose was tightening. Judge Trent wasn't just suspicious. He was digging, and he was getting close. When Trent received word from Drake that Kira's ID number linked to a duplicate file, an anomaly in the federal database, he knew. He grinned slowly, a predator who had found his prey's softest spot. She's FBI, he growled, slamming his glass onto his desk. She's been playing us. By morning, he ordered a new set of charges drawn up, fabricated evidence of drug smuggling inside the prison. Enough to keep her locked up for decades. And to make sure the public turned against her, he leaked a false story to a friendly reporter. FBI mole caught running prison drug ring. Across New Orleans, headlines exploded. Protests that had begun quietly outside the courthouse grew louder. Free Kira Holt. Expose Trent. Justice for Kira. But Trent wasn't finished. He called in favors from a paramilitary group called Bayou Watch. Thugs with badges who specialized in stirring chaos, as peaceful protests. Swelled to thousands outside Royal Street, Bayou Watch operatives slipped into the crowds, disguised as protesters, to start fights and burn trash cans, giving the news stations footage of riots rather than demonstrations. Trent watched from his office window, smirking. The city would burn before he surrendered, but Kira wasn't beaten. Inside her solitary cell, she found her moment, slipping a coded message to a sympathetic young guard who carried it straight to Elias Ford. Within hours, the FBI moved, leaking the true evidence: bribes, secret deals, audio tapes, ledgers. The truth spread across social media faster than the lies ever had. Judge Malcolm Trent exposed in corruption scandal. New Orleans turned on him. Bayou Watch operatives were unmasked, their paychecks traced back to Trent's private accounts. Protesters surrounded the courthouse day and night, not just demanding Kira's freedom, but Trent's head. Cornered, desperate, Trent made one final move. He targeted Kira's family, rigging her mother's home in the 9th Ward with explosives. But Kira, with the help of the FBI, got there first, defusing the bomb with seconds to spare. And when she turned to find Trent himself lurking in the shadows, pistol raised, it ended not with a courtroom speech, but a flash of sirens and the thunder of federal agents surrounding him. Trent was dragged away in cuffs, screaming into the night that in the end, it wasn't a riot that destroyed him. It wasn't the protests or the press. That it was the one thing he had always believed he could silence: the truth. Kira Holt walked out of Orleans Parish Prison that evening, her head high, her record cleared, and her mission complete. And the city of New Orleans roared in her name, because justice, no matter how long it takes, always finds a way.